All right, John, so who we got on tonight?
Mate, we've got a work colleague of mine actually on tonight. So as you know, I've just made the move into the real estate world working with your empire. So we had Chris on last year.
Yeah.
And mate, to be honest, James, the chap's called James Brown. Mate, he's a young guy.
He's into jazz?
He's not into jazz. we can definitely ask him that.
Definitely.
I think for me, mate, he's a young guy. He's really hungry to learn. He's got himself into an amazing position. He's already actually acquired 2 properties. He's featured in the press over the last few years as well because he bought those properties in COVID.
Wow.
You know, when things were going to go up and down, and we've certainly seen things happen. And I'm just kind of keen to understand his motivation, how he did it, and just hopefully give people some hints and tips around if they are keen to get into this space, that when there's a will, there's a way, you know? So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm fascinated that a 21-year-old has decided to buy just when everyone else said it was the wrong time to buy, you know? And then he's turned out to have like 2 properties in a short amount of time. So yeah, I'm keen to pick his brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a blank piece of paper?
Well, if I turn it over, it's blank. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Listen in, mate. Lifestyle Pirates.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Lifestyle Pirates with me, Big J, and him, Adriano.
G'day.
This week, we are joined here by a colleague of mine, James Brown of Your Empire. Nothing to do with the old singer, although I've seen you on the dance floor, mate. You've got a few moves.
I do.
Obviously, your parents would bang into their tunes to give you that name.
I don't think that's exactly what happened.
No?
I don't know the exact story, but I feel as though they didn't actually connect the dots and work it out that I had the same name until a couple of weeks afterwards. So
not related?
Not related. Or not that I'm aware of.
Let me just cross that out.
I think they've been telling you porky pies.
Possibly.
You got other brothers and sisters?
Yeah, so a younger brother who's 17 and a younger sister who's 19.
Have they got famous music artist names as well?
No, so Josh Brown and Katie Brown. Okay. So unless there's some musicians out there with those names.
No Chris?
No Chris Brown, no. Maybe they were tossing up Chris Brown for me, but although maybe he wasn't, he might not
He wouldn't have been a thought then.
No.
Chris Brown?
I don't know. I know he's a rapper or something like that.
Right, okay.
You're not into that, John?
No, mate. No? Electronic stuff for me, buddy. Maybe a bit of hip hop back in the day when I was confused and trying to wear hats and baggy pants to make it look good.
Working myself out.
Exactly. Well, mate, welcome along. Thank you for coming to Lifestyle Pirates. Look, I think for me, one of the things I wanted to get you along to talk about today, you're a young guy. You've been featuring in the press a little bit over the last few years. You know, you're in the property game. Property's a hot topic. It's always a hot topic here in Australia. So I'm kind of keen to just understand your journey a little bit, how you've done things, how you've, I guess, fallen into the world. I don't know if people go to uni and want to graduate and dream about doing what we do. So just, I guess, keen to explore a little bit of that, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, of course. I think you're definitely right with property being an interesting thing in Australia. Everyone loves it. Everyone knows about it. So I think that's probably where it starts as well. I think being in Australia, everyone knows property. It's the thing you buy your first home. That's the thing everyone saves for. So I think that's probably where it's first ingrained in us, is probably from a very young age. But for myself personally, my father's actually a builder along the sort of the upper North Shore. So I think going from sort of when I was quite young, he sort of bought and sold a few properties, and I was always quite intrigued in how that went and what was happening with that. So I think it certainly started from a young age. Going sort of through my high school years and everything like that certainly wasn't at the top of my thoughts. Or probably wasn't a thought at all, to be honest with you.
You're not the only one.
No, so it wasn't like I was doing the paper run when I was 11 years old and saving every dollar for. Do you know what I mean? Like, it certainly wasn't like that at all. I was very much into my sport, hanging out with my mates. Schoolwork was touch and go. Probably wasn't all there, but
I think it was for the best of us. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, so it definitely wasn't something that I was conscious of or aware of to the extent that some people may sort of think or think I was. It sort of kicked off for me when I finished school, obviously at 18, and the whole thing's like, all right, you've got to go do something. What are you going to go and do? Everyone's, some people are going off and doing a trade. Some people are going off and doing university. Others are doing all sorts of different things. And for me, it was like, well, I've got to go and do something, and I sort of don't want to just go through the motions and do whatever and just take my time. I was really, I guess, driven and motivated to do something interesting and do something that I felt was setting myself up for the future. So I did start a university doing a Bachelor of Commerce at Macquarie University. It's not something I really enjoyed, I would say. University, it's a very interesting one, and we can talk about that later. That's maybe a good thing for us to talk about later as well, university and that. But so I started university doing Bachelor of Commerce, Macquarie. Concurrent to that, I was doing a lot of labouring for my dad, who's a builder.
Cheap labour for the old man. Love it.
Yeah.
Maybe we've all been there.
Yeah, so the early...
You haven't.
The early mornings.
I used to wash up coffee cups, thank you. And the cars.
Yeah, well, it was washing bricks and stuff for me. That's
Washing bricks.
Oh, all sorts
Why
of
did
things.
he to wash bricks?
Oh, he likes to reuse them.
There you
all
go.
that
Never
sort
done
of
a bit of hard labour in his life.
Hey, these hands have seen a lot of desks over the years.
But yeah, so the digging the trenches and stuff on the winter cold mornings, I worked out very quickly that certainly wasn't for me. I was like, well, I'm not going to be a builder. Yeah. I'm definitely not going to be a labourer, so I'm going to have to find something else. So obviously I was doing that to get a bit of money just to fund sort of my lifestyle. Obviously at that age, doing a lot of going out and having a lot of fun, which costs money. And I was still thinking, I was going, well, this costs money and I don't like working like this, so we need to find other ways. So I started to look into property and how I could use that as a wealth creation strategy. And
How old were you at this point?
I would have been 18, probably just about to turn 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never would have put those three words together at 19 ever. Wealth creation strategy. No. I wasn't thinking of that.
No, I was probably more thinking of a lifestyle funding sort of thing. I would
like
imagine.
that better.
Yeah. So so I started looking into it and researching it a lot. I'd also picked up a job pouring beers at a pub in Waitara that I was working at. Also doing a lot of cricket coaching. Also did a little bit of rugby coaching as well at this time. So I was doing a lot of casual work, which obviously added up as well. But I knew that property was something, I didn't know whether it was a career for me at this stage, but I knew it was certainly something that I wanted to get invested in and use to build wealth and fund my lifestyle. So I started researching, watching a lot of videos, listening to a lot of podcasts. And Chris Gray, who obviously we work with, John, he's someone
been on the show as well.
He has. Okay. So he was someone that I came across, obviously, and he was the Sky News Your Property Empire host as well. And I found he had a very good way of explaining things and articulating the way that he built his portfolio. So he was someone I very quickly, I liked the way he did things, and very quickly, wanted to get involved with that sort of thing. So I, funnily enough, I actually reached out to, or before I reached out to him, I was looking into property courses that I wanted to get into because I wanted to build my knowledge and do all those sorts of things to obviously help with that side of stuff. So I was looking into courses, reached out to him. I said, Chris, what do you think of this course?
So never met him before?
No, never met him before.
Bullish, I like it.
Yeah, so I was a bit ambitious and a bit out there, but I sent him a text message and just said, I'm 18, or I think by then I was probably just 19 years old, looking to get into property. This is a course I'm looking at doing, and that course was, I think, $5,000 or something, which was quite a lot of money, obviously, for a 19-year-old. And he said, let's have a call tomorrow. We're going to have a chat. I said, great. So I rang him the next afternoon at, I don't know what time it would have been, maybe 3 o'clock or late-ish in the afternoon. And he said, someone that I know is actually doing a course, or is running a 3-day course that starts tomorrow. And I'd been looking into sort of developing. For me, I was attracted to the very lucrative property development, and I could see that as a way. There's sort of different strategies there where you can actually make quite a lot of money without having to risk a lot. There's different strategies there which we can talk about later as well, maybe.
I was going to say, like for people that have no idea what you're talking about, why is property development lucrative?
It's lucrative because you're essentially going and developing a property that isn't at its full potential. So say if you went and found maybe 5 properties in a row that are all or 5 houses that are all next to each other, but that property is zoned to have maybe units on there, maybe 6 stories of units. Obviously having those 6 stories of units, which might be say 40 units, that value is going to be more than the 5 houses by itself. So obviously there's a lot of detail in the feasibilities and working out what stacks up and with your margins and everything, but essentially that's the way that it's quite lucrative, and if done well, you can make quite a lot of money out of it. If done poorly, you can also lose a lot of money if not done right. So this was something I was very interested in as well, and funnily enough, Chris had actually started getting involved in property development himself as well, literally pretty much at the same time. So the timing was quite perfect, the call that we had. And so basically the thing was if you go and do this course, look, there's no promises. He said to me, look, I've never met you, but maybe if you go and do this course tomorrow, and this course cost a few $1,000s, again, quite a bit of money for someone of my age back then. And he said, yeah, if we go and do this, maybe we can have a chat after and maybe we can do something together or possibly work together. So for me, that was, I guess the lesson in that was making a decision very quickly. When you're 3 o'clock in the afternoon speaking to someone that you've never met before, that you've seen on TV a couple of times, maybe read his book and that, doing a course the next day of a guy you've never heard of, and you're paying $3,000 when that's probably quite a bit of your net worth at that stage.
That's a leap of faith.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's probably one of the best decisions I've made.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I think you're obviously, property's ingrained in you from what your family does. I mean, I know people that spend tens of thousands of dollars on courses. They go to the Tony Robbins stuff, they'll do other things, and they do nothing with it at the end of it. Some of them do great stuff, but a lot of people are quite happy to spend money on courses to be there and post the photo and all that kind of stuff, but don't do anything with it. But if you've got your idea in mind, and I think, knowing Chris, he's kind of dangled the carrot and put the commitment in your role, and if you do it, then we can have a conversation afterwards. So interesting.
And maybe it was almost a little bit of a test like that.
Yeah, it sounds like it was.
Yeah, I don't think he would have been thinking of that, but maybe subconsciously he was thinking, if this kid goes and does it, then he might be a good person to work with. Mm-hmm. So, the thing is, I went and did the course, 3-day course, learnt lots, obviously, and then
and what does the course cover? Like, again, someone that doesn't know anything.
Yeah, so that was a property development course. So lots of things. And again, I had very, very little idea about property development. I'd done a little bit of research myself before that, trying to do things on a much smaller scale. Things like maybe subdivisions. I was trying to get options on sort of big blocks of lands and get the DA approval for subdivision, which I was actually running around trying to do by myself for a bit. Having the skills I have now, I would be able to do that quite easily. But back then it was hard, and I learned a lot of things during that period as well. But that was sort of, before the course and before I met Chris. But then when I did the course, everything was at a much larger scale, and that was very exciting for me. The numbers are big. And it was quite cool. So
a bit like moving to the big city with loads of opportunity.
It was. It certainly was like that. Did the course, met up with Chris afterwards. We had coffee. We had a bit of a chat. Again, I didn't really know what... And at this stage, I didn't even know this was a career for me.
Yeah.
But again, it was just an opportunity, and sometimes you get that feeling. You sort of, your gut tells you it's a good thing to do. And basically, it's actually quite a funny story. I'm sure he won't mind me talking about it. I hope he doesn't mind me talking about it.
No one to hear it anyway. So
true. So what sort of happened was I agreed, or what we mutually agreed was I would sort of work for free, and in exchange get obviously mentoring from him and get to spend time with him and his connections and learn all the skills and get his knowledge and everything. For him, it was obviously good because he could leverage my time and my enthusiasm, as obviously I was quite keen. So, we organised that I'd work for free, and then if I did sort of get a deal, sort of help with the deal and make a big deal happen, then I would get like a bonus or something like that. So it was perfect for me because
skin in the game for you.
Yeah, it was an incentive there for me. Obviously a financial incentive, but more so for me at that stage, the incentive was to learn as much as I could. Yeah. And get for a connection like that for me at that age was priceless, really. So But the funny thing with that is when he got up like a bit of a, he wanted his lawyers to write up a bit of a confidentiality agreement or an employee sort of agreement. And his lawyer said something along the lines of, "Oh, Chris, if you're not paying him, he's not able to work for you if you're not paying him." So he very worked out quite well for me because he started paying me on a casual sort of basis, which again, not a lot of money, but it was a little bit of pocket money for me at the time. So yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Because I think that's one of the misconceptions in property, and I think this is probably where the media's had a great go of it with, $1 million listing here, and we've got the show over at Lux Listings here in Sydney, that there's a lot of money to be made, but there's such a slow ramp up time, in the game, because you've got to build your network, you've got to make sure the deals are happening. It's not just you turn on a light and then the water starts flooding in. So yeah, it's probably a good shout on that side.
Yeah, it's certainly not overnight.
No, big time.
A lot of the time it looks like it. And that goes for anything, I think. It's not just property, it's everything. Things look like they happen overnight, where it certainly doesn't work like that.
No.
Or not in my experience anyway.
No, I don't think in anyone's experience. It's not very common. So you've gone to this course. How do we get from there to Blue Chip?
Yep. So went to the course, obviously working for Chris, doing all these jobs. So I was doing the pub, still doing some labouring for my dad, which was getting less and less where I wanted to be.
Slacker.
Yeah, but look, but then again, it's still that's still very valuable because you need to do things that you don't want to do to work out what you do want to do.
100%.
And that goes for the pub job as well. It certainly served a purpose for me at the time, and I'm very grateful for that because it helped me get onto that. But
so can you repeat that? Because I think you've just kind of glossed over that, and I think that's such a poignant thing you've just said.
What did I just say?
You just said you need to do things that you don't want to do to realise what you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people just want to go straight to the top or just go straight to wherever they want to go. But how do you know that's what you want to do if you're not doing all these other things? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think
very accurate. A
lot of people, and this is maybe something we can touch on as well, especially when people are leaving school, they don't know what they want to do. It's probably the biggest thing.
That pressure.
Yeah, there's probably pressure. There's social pressure. There's pressure from heaps of different people. Name it. There's so many. And they go and they just sit there and they think to themselves, oh, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Do I want to do this? But my thing is go and speak to people that are doing things in that, or go and try it for a bit. And that's that's where you're going to find out what you actually want to be doing.
Well, I think one of my takeouts is, you use the term going through the motions. Now, that being someone that's married to an Aussie, it was very much ingrained in her mindset that as soon as school finished, she was travelling. Actually, that's a lie because she was loving working, and a lot of her friends went overseas and were like, "Oh, you need to join us." So I know a lot of Aussies, love that overseas travel piece to get the experience. You've chosen to do a bit of research and development, start to build your network at a young age, which is normally when people do it after the fact, when they enter the corporate world. So, for me, you're already kind of ahead of the pack there already.
Yes, that's the thing. I didn't do any travelling. I've been overseas once in my life.
Where'd you go?
Went to Sri Lanka, actually, for a cricket tour.
Cricket?
Yeah, when I was 15. It was a great experience. And look, maybe that's something that, maybe that's a shortfall for me and something I should have done more. But again, it's very difficult to have everything. So it's about sort of understanding what you value and then living sort of within those values, I think. And obviously that could change. Now I probably do want to do some travelling. But then my thought with the travelling was a lot of my friends are out there, they're on budgets of however many $1,000s and they're staying in really run-down places, trying to save every penny and maybe not enjoying it as much, where my thing was make a bit more money and then I can go have a proper go at it.
Yeah.
When I
That's
when
right.
Look at the sparkling.
I love that, yeah.
I can go and give it a nudge.
Yeah, mate. It's super yachts. That's what's happening with me, baby.
So what did mum and dad say when, because you spoke about university, but I get the sense that's still an ongoing conversation or an ongoing learning. So what did mum and dad say when you said, I'm working for this guy. I've met this guy.
Yeah.
I've reached out to him online and he's on TV. I'm working for him and we're doing a bit of a kind of contra deal here where he's going to help me and I'm going to help him. What was their kind of first impression?
I think they thought it was really good. Doing that course on a few hours' notice was probably not something they had in their mind.
It doesn't seem like a smart decision.
No,
it's
it doesn't.
I just met this guy. I'm spending $3,000. See you later in a cult.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So I don't know how they felt about that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a show on Netflix about a property cult.
It's coming.
I reckon.
Yeah.
I reckon.
Yeah. But yeah, no, they were quite supportive of that. They understood the learning potential I had for something like that. So.
And how about like your peer groups, your mates and stuff from school and uni? What was their kind of reactions?
Most people aren't thinking about it too much anyway. They're worrying about themselves.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about it much to start with. So I didn't really. Yeah, there wasn't really many reactions because everyone's at the end of the day. Most people are, working out whether they're going to uni or what they're going to do. So everyone's worrying about themselves anyway. So no, it wasn't too much.
Fair play. So walk me through, because there's been a few articles about you over the last few years.
Yep.
Buying properties in COVID, young 21-year-old. How did you make that happen? You seem to be someone that's, if you don't have the resources, you will kind of you become resourceful.
Find a way.
You'll find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? So how did you do that when, I think, speaking generally, the predictions were property prices were going to decrease in COVID. We've seen exponential growth, which is insane. How have you managed to do that in your, at your age, in a global pandemic, buying these kind of blue chip areas? Where did you buy in the end?
Vaucluse was the first one.
Yeah. And then where's the other one?
Cremorne.
Yeah. So walk me through how that worked, who you spoke to, that kind of stuff. Because I think that's what a lot of people... I love the fact you've done some research and development. I think a lot of people will take their views, thoughts and opinions from their friends around the barbecue. It's a very, very familiar scene in Australia. You have a chat.
Absolutely.
So Uncle Jimmy knows best. They don't surround themselves with experts that are knowledgeable. They don't pull those knowledge pools and then make a decision. So how did you go through that situation?
Yeah, of course. So the thing for me, as you just touched on then, John, was getting your advice from the right people. So as we said at the start, everybody's an expert in property in Australia. Old uncle, whoever knows, and everyone's talking about it. The media are talking about it. And I think we're in a society where it's very easy to get influenced by what's happening around us and by what everybody else is doing. And sometimes it can be very difficult to make the right decisions for yourself. So what I was sort of able to do, I think that relates a lot in property because you got the media talking, price is going to go down 20%, price is going to go up 20%.
It sells headlines, doesn't it? It sells clicks, it sells advertising, sells newspapers.
It's like the crypto market.
Yeah.
It does, and it's sometimes there's so much noise there, you get confused and you don't know what to do. So what I sort of did was, as I said, I was very conscious about where I got my advice from. So obviously someone like Chris, with his experience, and by this time I was quite close with him, I was speaking to him quite a lot about how I could do it and what I could do. And obviously myself, in the nature of being younger on various part-time jobs, you've got a limited income, and that limited income obviously makes it hard for serviceability, as well as obviously saving deposits and things like that. So for me at that stage, to get into a good property, a blue chip property.
And what's blue chip, just for people that don't know?
Yep, so blue chip is probably an area where it's got strong sort of capital growth over a long period of time, and history shows that property is going to keep going up over the long term. Not a blue chip area would be sort of like a mining town where it goes up and down and up and down. A blue chip area is usually very close to a CBD, but not in the CBD.
Yep.
So in Sydney, that's sort of your eastern suburbs, lower North Shore, inner west. Brisbane and Melbourne have obviously their blue chip areas, or the capital cities would as well. But it's basically what comes with that being a good area is it's quite a it's hard to get into from a price point.
I remember when I first moved here, I used to hear the term, it's out in whoop whoop somewhere. And of course, reading some of the signposts when you first move here from the UK, there's some weird and wonderful names. So I would Google like property and whoop whoop. And of course, there's nothing there.
Nothing?
No, nothing there.
Isn't it in Africa?
I don't know. It could well be. It's certainly not in New South Wales.
It's pretty far.
It's certainly not in Australia. But I used to Google.
I call it ride. No.
Sorry, we digress.
That's all right. So basically, blue chip area. So my thoughts were, I need to get into a blue chip location. I need to do whatever I can to do that. For me, yes, like you can make money. There's lots of different strategies in property. You can make money by picking hot spots. You can make money by developing. You can make money by, high rental yields. But for me, at my age, I thought I want to go for an area where there's going to be strong capital growth, and play the long game. This is a 20 year game for me. And that was... So,
you're retiring at 45?
A bit younger.
Nice.
I'm 21.
Good to know. Good to know.
No. So it was...
Well done. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just invite me on your boat, please.
Definitely. We'll have a podcast out of the boat.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
But so I had to get into a blue chip area. By myself, I was next to no chance based on the serviceability and deposit. I could probably get into out whoop whoop somewhere. So one of my very close friends, who's actually a cousin of mine, his name's Marty, he'd been working in the army, and he had been saving money for quite some time. He had always had that sort of goal of buying property as soon as possible. So he had quite some savings and all that. So I was sort of learning quite a bit at this stage, and my knowledge was certainly increasing at a rapid rate. And I said to him, look, if you want to buy property, I want to buy property. There's no point us both going out and buying our own properties in crook locations. Let's do a joint venture, or are you open to doing a joint venture and getting into a good spot where we're both going to win, because it's possibly or most probably going to perform better than the getting our own ones in a crook location.
What did your parents think about that?
Yeah, again, very supportive.
Yeah.
They look, and I think because that's the thing you do when you have money to buy property, you do. So I think this was in that first COVID lockdown, which we can touch on again. But so basically we got all our finance through with myself, with my serviceability or my incomes from all the part-time jobs I was doing, those 3, 4, 5 part-time jobs or whatever, as well as his service or his income from the army, and then just putting our deposits together. That was enough to get us that Vaucluse place.
Awesome.
So why, when everything was saying that the property prices or the value was going to go down at the beginning of COVID and everything else like that, why did you decide, or why did you think it was a good idea for them to buy?
Yeah, again, it's going back to one of Chris's strategies is you buy when you've got the money and when the bank will lend you the money.
Yeah. That's the formula.
As long as you've got a long-term view.
Yeah.
And look, you need a bit of a cash buffer to make sure you're okay to get through any short-term sort of downfalls.
What's a cash buffer?
Cash buffer is a little bit of money sitting in your bank account where if you're not able to get someone to rent it for a few weeks, or you need to do some repairs or whatever, you can obviously cash flow that.
It's not like a percentage on the property value or something like that?
Look, some people probably work off a percentage, but I haven't really thought of it in that sense. But okay. So that was the thing for me, and plus it's exciting. It's like as soon as you get an opportunity to do something like that at a young age, you want to be doing it. So there wasn't really any hesitation in that sense. As we said before, the media, price is going to go down heaps. Price is going to do, no one knows what price is going to do. They've got all these economists, all the banks hire these economists, they're the smartest brains in the country, and I think most of the time, or some of the smartest brains in the country. And
it's
most
just like the weather,
Yeah, it's just like the weather, it changes.
Look, I think a lot of them are stumped on the latest round. I think a lot of them have been stumped over the last 12 months in terms of what's gone on, because a lot of the fundamentals that they would look at have not played out.
Absolutely.
So, again, to your point, if you've got the money and you can service it and there's an opportunity, and again, it's the long-term play, so jump in.
Obviously, you can look at historical value, you can understand why it went up. So everyone said it was going to go down during COVID, it went up. Why did it go up? Why did property prices go up?
At the end of the day, it's supply and demand. Look, there's other things like interest rates are very, very low at the moment. That means people can borrow money quite cheaply.
Yeah.
But I think it's supply and demand. There was a very low supply. There's a very high demand, and that's sort of just why those prices are going up, especially in these areas, these blue chip areas.
I was going to say, just to build on that, that probably doesn't always go up in all areas. So it's not a kind of carte blanche approach.
Okay.
you know, if you look at, so for example, in the UK, when I had my place, it was probably about an hour outside of London, and in the GFC, you know, property prices in your kind of Chelsea, Kensington, Fulham, you know, again, those blue chip areas, they kind of slowed down. They didn't really go down. Whereas my place where I was in Surrey took a bath, and I was in negative equity. So which meant, you know, my mortgage payments were doing more than what the property was worth. So again, it's the kind of, I don't want to say the power, but it's why people buy in those blue chip areas, because again, if you're within a CBD radius, you could argue that people always want to live in there. In the CBD where these high rises, there's too much supply and not enough demand. So it's that balance. It's why Ferrari will only release X amount of certain cars, because it keeps that supply and demand there.
Yeah, of course. You always make one less than what people want.
Exactly. So if you look at some of the blue chip areas, so like Bondi, for example, there's nothing shiny and new there. They're all kind of old and existing red brick properties. They're perhaps one of 10 to 12 units. There's height restrictions in Bondi. It's by the beach, so there's land restrictions, because one side there's water, the other side there's the CBD. Yep. So they can only build so much in these areas. So there's always going to be people.
Easy math, that,
Yeah. And then also, you know, my observation with certainly Sydney is that it's a global destination now. You know, people want a crash pad in Sydney because they're traveling to Singapore or Hong Kong and for business, so they'll have another place. You know, people are setting up businesses here, so they'll have another place there. Why not have a little plug and play unit in Bondi or in the eastern suburbs?
The other thing with Sydney is we've got national parks either side. You've got the ocean one side, and then you've got the Blue Mountains the other side. There's not much more land in Sydney. Obviously, once you start to get out west a bit more, there's more potential for an increase in supply. In areas like CBDs, there is more of that. But going back to your point, John, I find it unlikely that in the next couple of decades it's going to be a 50-story building at Bondi Beach. It's just not very likely. The locals wouldn't be very happy, and especially being in a very, very affluent area like that, they've got, you know, money to spend on lawyers and things. As funny as it sounds, I think that does actually occur sometimes in those areas. They get lawyers and stuff to, you know, fight these development applications and stuff like that. So it's very hard for that sort of thing to happen. And it's all a lot of it's heritage, and the height limits, like you just described, make it very hard for there to be that much of an increase in supply.
So if the prediction of COVID was incorrect about property value going down, next year they're talking about interest rates going back up. Is next year a bad time to buy? Will you see like vulture buying? People, once the interest rates go up, they won't be able to, you know, service their mortgage, and people will be selling. I don't know what's going to happen next year. I'm only asking because I'm about to buy, so.
I think that's the $1 million question, isn't it? The thing is, I don't know.
It's all right. This is not like financial advice.
Yeah,
I'm not
you
going to
better put the disclaimer up.
Huge disclaimer on this one.
Yeah.
Please consult your financial advisor before listening to this podcast.
Yes. But no one has the crystal ball. Anyone that says they do, they're probably not telling the truth, because no one does. As we said before, a lot of the economists and the banks, they're some of the brightest brains in the country, and they've been, a lot of them have been very wrong. What I will say is, and going back to when you should be buying when you have the cash buffer, buying when you have the money, and when the bank will lend you the money. But is the property that you're buying, are you confident that's going to be worth more in 10 years' time than what it's worth today? I think that's the $1 million question. And I believe personally in these areas, in these blue chip areas we talk about, then they are going to be worth more in 10 years' time.
Yeah, of course. I think that goes without saying. So, look, I'm buyer's agent, right? I had a conversation with one of my peers the other day, and he's looking to buy in my area. So Abbotsford, Five Dock area with the rest of the Italians. So he's looking to buy in that area. And I said, have you thought of going to a buyer's agent or speaking to a buyer's agent? And he's like, why would I want to do that? And I go, I don't know, I think they can help you. You know, he goes, I know all the real estate agents around here as well. He goes, so why would I need to go to a buyer's agent? I've already done all the homework. What do I need to tell that bloke?
He might buy one property every 5 years, or I don't know, however many.
The frequency wouldn't be of that.
Yeah. If we're doing a deal a week or something, our relationships with the real estate agents, I believe, are going to be a lot better than his relationship with the real estate agents.
Yeah.
Real estate agents, they're going to be nice to everybody. That's their job, as they should be as well. So everyone's going to think they've got a great relationship with them, where in reality, maybe or maybe not.
I think just to build on that as well, so the real estate agent represents the vendor. So the person's selling the property, and that vendor wants the best price. The person buying wants the best price, but they've got two different views, thoughts, and opinions on what the best price is. So a buyer's agent represents the buyer. And I guess what we do at Your Empire, cheeky plug, is part of our process, is we get an independent valuation on that property. And then we take that to the agent and the vendor, and then we will go into bat for our client. So we'll get the deal done at that. And if it goes above what we think is a sensible price, whether it's owner, occupier, or investor, then we'll just walk away from that deal.
How long does that extend the journey?
Depends, because every vendor has a price in their mind that they want to achieve, because they're normally moving on to another place. It could be from a deceased estate. They could be going through a divorce and they just want to get rid of the family home. They might not want their neighbours to know that they're moving, so that's why they sell off market and they don't advertise it. So there's lots of different reasons why, but normally people have got a price in mind that they will settle at. So you should never see a buyer's agent making front page headlines for the right reasons in the press, because they should always be buying at a very conservative price for their clients.
And the other thing with the off markets, which Kel Gray, who we work with, he says a lot, is just because it's off market doesn't mean we want our clients to be paying a premium just for the privilege of buying off market. Yes, off markets can be great, as John just described, because you're taking away that buying competition. However, as John just mentioned, then you still need to meet the vendor's expectations to make a deal happen.
Yeah.
If the vendor's expectations are unrealistic, then we're not going to buy an off-market just to say we bought an off-market. So that's where the independent valuation is very important, and something that a lot of buyers don't use. A lot get a building report, a lot look at a building report. Most obviously get the strata and the contract reviewed, but the valuation is something that a lot of people miss. And then going on to, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
It's your question, buddy.
I can't remember my question. Come on.
Oh yeah, why
you were saying why use a buyer's agent.
But that's the main thing is, sometimes we're going to let that off market actually come onto the market to get their expectations back down, because the market will bring their expectations back to where it should be. Yeah. And then that's when we're going to sort of go in there and make sure we secure it.
So how's a property off market but you can still buy it? Isn't that a market?
It's still a market, but it's a market that's not advertised.
Okay.
It's a property that's not known to the general public.
So they've reached out to a real estate agent saying, I want to sell my property.
Yes.
But they haven't addressed it or put it out there publicly.
Yeah. So look, there's different types of off markets.
So do you get real estate agents? Oh, mate, I've got a beauty for you.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So you got a good relationship with them. Not like this bloke.
Well, that's
Dave, you heard it here first.
Yeah. So no,
I guess. Name. Sorry, Frank.
Dave, Frank, Mike, Alvin, Simon, Theodore.
Keep on confusing it. So I'm trying to pick it apart, right? So why would someone go to a buyer's agent, or actually, why would they sell to a buyer's agent if there's been heaps of stuff in the paper recently, or paper, that's archaic, about going to auction and then the property going for like another 400 grand over market or over the price that was, first evaluated. Why wouldn't everyone just go for that then and not settle before?
It's, like John just mentioned before, it's different vendors have different motivations.
Yeah.
And it's about understanding that not all vendors' motivations are getting the highest price. Mm-hmm. For example, an older lady who lives by herself in her home, that she's lived there for many years, she may have like a very emotional attachment to the home and need time to move out, yet she doesn't want that stress of a 6-week settlement. Yeah. She may like a longer settlement, like a 6-month settlement. Mm-hmm. That may work for a buyer who might be like a mum and dad developer who wants to knock down and rebuild because they can get their plans through council in that time. Yeah. Other things like advertising, some people don't want the cost of advertising. And some people just don't want people coming through their home for lots of open homes and don't want to go to the hassle of preparing the home for open homes. So it's about understanding their motivations, and then that's sort of how you can get those off-market deals happening.
The more you know. Thank you very much, guys.
There you go. but would you see a similar behaviour in your world?
Well, for buying classic cars and stuff like that? Yeah, actually we do. They come to us and we know that there's a car for sale, or we know of a car that someone's been, thinking about selling or something like that. And if someone comes to us and they ask, I've heard you know of an F40 or something like that, you know, we usually reach out to those clients and we can do a deal before it hits the market. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Very similar.
Same me, different gravy.
yeah,
It's when I go and buy my first Corolla, I'm going to come to you first so you can look it over because you're an expert on cars.
you can drive our investments. you can sleep in a car, but you can't drive a house, mate. All right.
No.
Nice work.
Yeah, thank you.
Mate, any other questions? I see you scribbling notes down there.
I have. No, ease up. I'm going. It was more about this buyer's agent and why do I need him? No, because next year I'm thinking of doing the old another investment. So I was going to actually give the old buyer's agent a chance.
Oh,
Yeah,
there we go. It's lucky you know a couple
I know,
of good
right? I
ones.
feel now I'm just going to get grilled. What have I done?
You heard it here first. I took a meditation after saying it on a podcast, so no pressure, buddy.
Yeah.
And then where was your other place you bought? So you say you bought two. So you
Hackamore.
walked us through that first one, which was a joint. Let's just call it a joint venture with a member of the family. How did you then go to buy another one in such a short space of time? You know, that's.
Of course.
I mean, a lot of people struggle to buy their first one, and you've been very fortunate to do your journey. So.
Yeah, so after the first one, obviously, there was sort of a newspaper article and everything like that. And what I was able to do then was, I guess, leverage that into sort of building my career and sort of business in that sense. Obviously, once I had more credibility then because I own property. With more credibility, obviously brings more business and more work and that sort of thing, and I could add more value to the team, and that sort of obviously increases your income, which helps everything at the end of the day. So I think so I dropped off the pub job, dropped off all the part-time jobs, took up the buyer's agent's work full-time, obviously still doing the developing stuff with Chris as well, and then with an increased income that certainly helps all of that.
So what would you say to people that are frustrated but that they can't just get on the market? So let's say, because it's in the press a lot at the moment, so let's say they're frustrated, they can't buy in Sydney. Would you advocate for looking overseas? Would you advocate for kind of buying elsewhere in Australia? Because I think you, from what I can take, you just did what needed to be done to get on the ladder. That was your journey.
Yes.
And I guess maybe timing was quite good to have a member of the family that wanted to jump on as well,
Yes.
and you did it together. Would you kind of advocate for that approach, saying, look, if you want property's not everything. People buy stocks, shares, crypto is the new rock and roll. And I think, for our generation, it gives that instant gratification hit. It also goes the other way as well when it takes an absolute bath.
It's not monitored.
But yeah, what would you say to people that are just they're frustrated?
I think, look, it's hard to give advice generally because different people are going to have different things that work for them. There's no right or wrong answer that fits everybody.
Bang on.
I think for myself, the joint venture with my cousin, who's also a very close friend of mine, was perfect. We get along very well. We had very similar values or ideas and property goals in that sense. But the reality is not everybody's going to have that sort of same situation as me. Some people might be higher income earners. Some people might have a higher deposit, yet a low income. But I think most people who are struggling to get into the market by themselves, or getting into a good spot, if they want to get into a blue chip location, I think they need to look outside the box and look at joint ventures. Whether that be, with friends, family, strangers, maybe there's a market there where we could do a Tinder for property matching with joint ventures, possibly. Maybe there's something.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was reading up about a business the other day called Mortgage Mates, which is that kind of concept.
There we go.
Over in WA. I might throw a bit of a spanner in the works here as well. I mean, one of my observations is in the UK. When I was in the UK, I never had a kind of, when I was looking to buy my first place, I never thought I could buy it in London, or San Francisco or Hong Kong or Singapore. These capital cities that have got huge volumes of people. A lot of them are hubs for travellers and corporate travellers. And there's this kind of stigma that people should be able to buy their first property in Sydney. And you've already said that there's limited land, all that kind of stuff. And I do sometimes go, well, maybe look further afield. Maybe look interstate. Maybe look a little bit outside of the suburbs rather than trying to buy somewhere which is as I said, a global destination where there's not a lot of land, you know?
Yeah, look, sometimes you do have to compromise.
Mm.
Like on my last property, I would have loved to have bought Bondi Beach, but wasn't able to happen. So I had to sort of compromise slightly and go into Cremorne just because that's where my budget
Sounds
was.
horrible.
That's right.
Cremorne's a lovely
No,
place.
but that's the thing. Sometimes you do have to make compromises.
Yeah.
If you're not able to find a way to do it how you want to do it exactly, well, look, I made a compromise on my first one as well. I would have loved to have owned the Vaucluse one by myself, but the reality is it wasn't going to happen for me at that stage. So, yeah, I think it's about working out where you're happy to compromise and then finding a way to move forward with that.
So what's the crack with the first property? You don't live in it, do you?
No, it's rented out.
So what's the plan for that?
Keep it for a long time.
Yeah.
And watch it go up in value and collect the rent. And I guess we're going to keep it for at least 10 years. That's generally a property cycle in these blue chip areas. And then after that, we'll sort of play it by ear.
Okay. You mentioned a phrase before, which I've never heard before, and maybe just because I'm an idiot. Rental yield.
Yes.
Can you explain what that was? Because you brushed over that, and I was like, I need to know what that is.
Yeah, so the rental yield is essentially understanding what your rental return is on your property investment over the course of 12 months. So when you have a rental, so obviously people that rent it, obviously the higher the rental yield, the better. But generally speaking, it's very hard to get locations where you have a high rental yield and a high capital growth as well over a long period of time. So in these blue chip areas where you might get growth, or historically we've seen growth of sort of 7 to 10% per year on average. Currently the rental yields there sort of around Bondi and that are probably 3% to 3.5%. Whereas if you go to somewhere in Queensland where there might not be that capital growth, you might get a rental yield of say 5%. So the way you work out your rental yield is you work out what your yearly rent is. So say what your weekly rent is times by 52 because there's 52 weeks in the year. And then you very simply just divide that by the value of your property. That will come up as a decimal place and you times that by 100 to give you your percent. So it's also a good way to work out when you're looking to purchase a property, whether it's one that will suit you in terms of what it's going to give you as a return from a rental perspective. So look, I don't know if you use that to value a property as such, but you can certainly use it as a backup to see whether it stacks up from the rental perspective and whether it's aligned with what you would target or what you would want in that sort of area.
What should people? Oh, this is $1 million question. What should people be aiming for when they buy a property to then rent out?
Aim for in terms of rental yield?
Yeah.
Around Sydney, so Bondi or these blue chip areas, 3%. If you're over 3%, you're doing well.
Yeah.
An interesting thing as well is usually the one bedders have a slightly higher rental yield than the two bedders or the three bedders units. It's a very interesting thing, and the reason I believe why is, so generally speaking, your target rental market is a younger market who aren't able to afford to buy into the property market themselves. And with that younger market, there's not many single people who are going to live in a one-bedder by themselves. Usually if they're going to go and say move out of home with from their parents, they're going to go rent a two-bedder with one of their mates or one of their friends. The only people really, and look, there's still exceptions to the rule, but the people that rent the one-bedders, generally speaking, are young couples. So they've got two incomes to support that rent, basically. So when you've got two incomes to support the rent and then still on a two-bedder, you've still only got the two incomes because you've got two mates who are living with each other. That's why the rental yields for the one-bedders are usually slightly higher. When I mean slightly, I mean by 0.2 or 0.3%. Yeah.
Fair play. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And actually, going on some of the things you say, because I follow you on Instagram.
Yes.
And you put out some really good content.
Thank you.
LVR.
Loan to value ratio. So
I'm going
basically,
to write this shit down.
Just follow him on Instagram. It's a lot easier.
That last one's going to be a great soundbite, by the way.
So yeah, your loan to value ratio basically is how much of a loan you've got in compared to the value of the property. So say if you've got a $1 million property and you've got a 90% loan to value ratio, means you've got a $900,000 mortgage on that. So that's your $900,000 loan.
Out of interest, I've kind of put down here about a bit about the dream team. Did you, when you went to get finance, did you use a mortgage broker? And I guess what's the difference between using a broker and a bank for those people? And again, I've worked in foreign exchange payments for 18 years, so I know that there's a benefit in using an FX broker rather than just going to the bank. So I'll come back to my question around the difference between using a mortgage broker and the bank, because I think that a lot of people like to know that. But did you let them know that your plan is to keep acquiring properties? So I guess for me, like, are they working with you with that mindset that you've got an investment mindset rather than just helping you get a loan for a property?
Yeah, probably. I probably didn't do that. Certainly a good idea. It's definitely a good idea. But no, it's not something I was very conscious of at the time.
Yeah.
Now it's very different. Now I've certainly got strategies in place, or we're working on strategies with that sort of thing. But yeah, mortgage broker is really a no-brainer in my eyes. So basically what a mortgage broker does is they assist you with the finance of the property. They will do everything from working out what you can sort of afford based on your serviceability and your deposit. They'll work out who the best lender is for you, so what bank essentially, and then trying to work out a package that's going to work for you as well. The best thing about mortgage brokers, again, I've probably got to be careful with this, but generally speaking, the bank give them a commission with who you end up going for. So a lot of the time, it doesn't actually come out of your pocket. So it's a no-brainer really in that sense.
So is it all about interest rate as well?
Yeah, interest rates. They'll pick the best interest rate they possibly can. Sometimes the best package for you isn't always the lowest interest rate.
Yep.
A lot of people want the lowest interest rate, but if you can afford to borrow more money on a slightly higher interest rate and your property is going to go up 7 or 10% a year, if your interest rate's 3%, who cares? If it's 3% or 2.5% or whatever. So, yeah.
That's very interesting, that part. So what makes up... Oh, sorry, you wanted to talk about the dream team. No, because I read team equals house. So I've heard of a mortgage broker, a buyer's agent. Who else is in the team?
Well, you got
I've
solicitors.
just stolen your thing, sorry.
No.
You got solicitors, accountants. Solicitors obviously reviewing contracts. Accountants helping you with the structure of obviously tax things as well, but as well as how you want to structure, whether you want to hold it in your name or a company, those sorts of things. Then you've got like your valuers and your building inspectors.
It sounds very expensive.
Can add up. The due diligence can add up. That's why you want to make sure you
got the dream team.
You got the dream team, to get you the right property, and you don't have to spend too much by making mistakes a lot.
So this is going to sound like I'm doing this for myself. So if you are in the market to buy a property,
asking for a friend,
when do you start to engage a buyer's agent? And do you go to a buyer's agent? Do they help you find a mortgage broker? Do they help you find a solicitor? Like, it seems like quite a daunting task to have all of these connections yourself.
Yeah, so look, we can assist through, I guess, the whole process.
Yeah.
So look, even though you wouldn't engage us when you don't have finance or when you're not quite ready to buy, we can certainly put you or head you in the right direction and assist you with getting in touch with your dream team, essentially. You probably wouldn't engage us until you actually have your finance approved, because that means you're ready to go and we can go full steam ahead with the search.
Yeah. Good to know. Just taking notes, boys. I know a mortgage broker though.
I know you do, yeah. What will this property enable you to do? So we joked about retiring at 45.
But I don't want to retire.
That wasn't a joke.
I won't want to retire.
I don't think you will. I think you're too much of a grafter, to be honest with you. I think you'll, and I think you'll probably get that from your old man being a builder, because they just go on for years. But will it enable you to? So I got a friend who is in the entertainment industries and the music industry, and he has a couple of investment properties, but he travels around the world DJing, loves it. But I guess he's got the foundation here. He's got an asset, as it were. Is that kind of, obviously you don't DJ, but is that a similar vibe to you, where you think if I can acquire some properties on the time, I will then go and travel in luxury rather than like a backpacker? But what's the end goal for you? Because I think in a society where we have just so much abundance and we need more, you can quickly go, I need to just buy more and more properties. But what's the why? So what's your why? Again, someone so young, to be honest.
I think you don't want to have people don't want to have financial stresses when they're older. I think something that is not easy to do. Nothing's easy. But something that you can put your focus into is getting your finances in place, so it's something you don't have to worry about. Then your work becomes fun and it becomes a game, and what you're doing is actually enjoyable. Where if you're going to work, and it's sort of this whole thing of, I think you perform better as well when you're doing things because you want to be doing them, not because you have to. So yeah, that's sort of the place. Look, I feel like I'm, not that I'm there now, I'm certainly not financially secure or anything like that, or financially free like that. But I think when you get to a place like that, that's where you're really probably working your best as well, and because you don't have those stresses as much.
And just to turn that right on its head, because so realestate.com did post your thing on Facebook, and we all know, that everyone on Facebook has a wealth of knowledge and all that kind of stuff. There was some pretty dark comments. Like, what would you say to people? I always think it's quicker to shoot people down as well rather than compliment people and ask the how, the what, and the why, which I think is exactly what you've done by engaging Chris early on in the piece, which is, again, I think there's just so much value in taking a punt and backing yourself and reaching out to people, not in your network. I mean, I love networking. I'm always happy to do that, but I think that's just great. But what would you say to those people that did kind of comment and put those comments around, easy peasy and all that kind of stuff, who do you think he is and all that? Like, how would you encourage them to, I don't know, like, open their minds? I don't know.
Look, those sorts of things you're always going to get.
Always.
It only, if you let it sort of bother you, then that's when it's an issue. You don't sort of, but I think you've got to understand these people as well. When you sort of understand where they're at and where their mindset's at, that's when you can actually start to, you actually feel sorry for them. If they need to be saying that to make themselves feel better, there's a reason. So maybe we shouldn't be looking at that and saying, oh, it's bad they're saying that. Let's look at it from another point of view and say, well, how can we help people like this? So maybe if they can listen to podcasts like this, and if they're having a go at me because for doing things to set myself up financially, maybe that's because they're not sort of comfortable with where they're at financially. So look, listen to things like this and maybe that can help you. And I mean that in a serious way. Like, that's sort of my take on it. Don't have much more to add on that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think you're bang on. It's easy for people to just shoot someone down. But yeah, to have that, and for you to realise as well that maybe they are saying that for a reason, like because, they're struggling or they couldn't do it, or it's jealousy or something else like that. So they're like, you know what, nah, this and that. But I think it's having that conversation with that person. Maybe you can offer something to help them, and it'll definitely change their idea.
Yeah, look, I think it's also, it's a wee bit of a look in the mirror, isn't it? And I think the reason we wanted to get you on and have a chat was not only just because I work with you, but just the fact that for me, you're a young guy that you've taken a few chances, a few risks. You've done some things that ordinarily people wouldn't do by reaching out and working for free and having 5 jobs, and that's enabled you to set yourself up. And I know that you're not finished here. That was the kind of message I think I wanted to get people to listen to today, was to go, well, actually, where there's a will, there's a way. Regardless of what you want to do, you'll find a way. But it is easier just to stop and have a go and have a bark as well. So
like that's the thing. It's always, it's got its challenges still. It's certainly not easy. But I think where I'm...
Yeah, he's only been in Sri Lanka. I mean, my God.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like the only Aussie I know that's been in one country.
I know. Probably it's the only one.
But where I'm very fortunate, I think, is obviously where we work. I'm very lucky to have so yourself, John, Chris, Lewis, and Kel obviously as well. I've got sort of 4 people there that I can really, that all have very different skill sets. And for me now, that's about tapping into each one of those to learn as much as I can. So like Chris, obviously, I think from a branding point of view, Chris has been fantastic. Obviously with his numbers and everything, that's really good as well. Lewis, from a client's point of view, I love, when I first started, I just went with Lewis to heaps of potential client meetings to understand what's going on and, why do we buy in these areas? Like, why do we want to go in the blue chip areas and all that sort of stuff? Kel is obviously very real estate specific. All the things about, making an offer and what's a good property, all that Kel's, insanely good at. And then obviously yourself now, John, which we haven't gone into it too much, but I'm very interested to learn more from you in that networking side of thing and building business strategies and that sort of stuff. So I'm very lucky where I've got sort of 4 people that I can learn a lot of. Then I also do some work with a lady where it's a lot of, her name's Kelly, that we do a lot of work on sort of communicating and building relationships with people and communicating effectively with people, which I think in this industry is absolutely gold. So what I've sort of trying to do now is sort of put myself in a position where I'm still learning and still growing from lots of different people with lots of different skill sets.
So is Kelly like a mentor or a coach?
Yeah,
or?
she's like a performance coach in that sense.
Give her a plug. I mean, what?
Yeah,
but
Kelly Adamson, she's fantastic.
there you go. But like, what made you go down that route? That route.
It was just something that I thought I could improve on was I think being younger as well has those challenges with communicating with people who are much older in a business environment. So for me, it was like, how can I don't have the years of experience that, Kel or Lewis or Chris or you have, John. What can I do to sort of not fast track that? Because you're not able to fast track experience, but what you can do is upskill and you can sort of, do different things that can get you there quicker, which I feel I've certainly been doing. Things like how to build rapport with people more effectively, how to communicate well. All that has been absolutely gold for me the last sort of 6 months or so.
That's fantastic, man. I never had that mindset when I was your age. And to hear that coming out of you, like I've only started to start thinking like that recently. Okay. So to hear that, in someone so young as well is fucking amazing, man. Well done.
Plus it's fun. Like it's fun to learn new things.
Yeah.
From lots of different people.
I think I've made so many things that you've said tonight have really struck a chord with me as well. Man, I think you're onto great things, man. Well done, bro.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and look, I look forward to learning from you as well. To be honest, I mean,
thank you.
I'm young in my game. I can talk to anyone and go to the opening of an envelope when it comes to networking events. But I think what kind of shines me out with you is that you're just open to learning all the time. You're not afraid to ask a question. You tap into the resources around you, and I think there's so many people that perhaps aren't fortunate enough to have a kind of professional community or an office environment where they feel comfortable in asking and they want to learn from people. That's quite tough. So then you have to look outside the square and, to your point, listen to podcasts, read books, then find those people that resonate with you and reach out to them. I go on about LinkedIn all the time, but LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, there's so many ways to connect with people nowadays. And to your point, just ask for 5 minutes of their time.
Yeah, and it's and this is the thing, going back to where people are finishing school and they don't know what to do. Just go and ring people. Like a lot of the time, these people want to help people because they get to a stage, especially when you're at a certain stage of success. You can only keep doing it for so long until you need to do other stuff to get yourself sort of happy and fulfilled and stuff. So people want to give back, yet people just don't have I don't know whether it's the courage or they think too much about it, but just pick up the phone and ring someone because a lot of the time they're happy to help you out.
That's a fantastic lesson. Because you're right, you develop yourself first when you go into a career. You're always thinking about how you can do better for your career and everything else like that. But once you get to a stage where it's starting to plateau and what you can do, you kind of do want to help other people because helping other people helps you get to the next stop, next spot as well.
Because it could put you in a good sort of, puts you in a good sort of frame of mind and
it's fulfilling. It's fulfilling helping people.
Yeah, so it's and it's the thing, you help everybody and then everybody goes up, and that's where our business is great as well. I think everybody sort of, as I said, has different skill sets and everybody feeds off that, and that's where everybody can win at the end of the day, which is exactly what we all want.
Sounds great. You guys need a mechanic? No.
Chris might with all these cars.
Yeah,
Mate,
I've spoken to him.
Mate, you got any more questions? Have we ticked everything off?
I'm good.
We good?
No, you guys went through a lot of the questions I had anyway, so
Nice.
it's quite a lesson there. It was good.
Well, I'm going to finish off with a question.
Okay.
What's one of the things that you've learned in COVID, so the last couple of years, that you will take with you going forward?
I think there's a lot of things we can learn.
But you personally, like, if you were to draw
Yeah.
on something.
I think being very observant, if you can be observant of your surroundings and what's sort of, I think in a society where there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of fear, sometimes our judgments can get clouded and things like that, and it can be hard to make good decisions. And, you know, in property, this has been certainly been shown where, you know, people may have wished they bought last year and they weren't because they were scared and they were confused and they were uncertain. So maybe they didn't make the right decision for them at that time. So I think it's just about being very aware of what's of your surroundings and everything, and being very observant. I think as a whole society, as a society as a whole, I think that's something that we'll all learn, I think, going forward.
Awesome. Thank you. James Brown, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show. Mate, if people want to learn a bit more about you, reach out, you know, get your knowledge, how do people contact you?
On my Instagram, it's pretty good. James L. Brown 11, I think.
What's the L stand for?
My middle name's Lachlan.
Okay.
So and the 11's just like the number they gave you. You know, I just would have tried to go James Brown. They would have said no. And so
James Brown was taken.
James Brown was taken, unfortunately.
Yeah, I looked up one James Brown, and it was a makeup artist. Didn't look like you.
Okay.
So Instagram's the best one
yeah,
for you?
Instagram's good. My phone number 04.
You don't need to do that.
Don't do that.
Careful what you wish for.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
We won't do that.
And LinkedIn?
James Brown. Yeah.
Lovely.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much for coming on today.
That's all right.
I've certainly learnt a lot, and I'll be reaching out to you guys. So, thank you for that. I'm sure people got as much out of it as I did. So, yeah, thanks for coming on Lifestyle Pirates.
That's all right. I've enjoyed this massively. It's been
awesome.
a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye.